everybody, and how are we all doing today? This is the Sunday night live stream. It's a chance for us gardeners to get around the table, have a bit of chat about gardening, what we've been up to, and things like that. Now, today it's all about, well, we've got two subjects. First subject will be show us your plot. We've got a few photos and a couple of videos to come up about that. But also, I want to find out what you do for feeding your plants, your feeding routines, if you like. It sounds a little bit complicated. I haven't found a way of wording exactly what I want to find out, but I'm sure as we get into the conversation, things will become a bit more clear. So first of all, let's see if anybody is actually out there. And yes, Adrian is out there right at the very beginning. Hello to you. Ballycillian is saying he's had to return to the plot to water everything. May miss the show, but he'll watch on the catch-up. So thank you so much for watching back on the catch-up, Ballycillian. Digwell saying is out there as well, saying Mad Rush getting a barbecue ready for 7:30 when the show finishes. See you all in half an hour. Well, there you go. You know, I'm glad that you waited for after the show for the barbecue. But I'm sure it's going to taste fantastic. Nicola is out there. Evening all, just potting chickens in the run just in case Miss Fox comes calling. They're about, aren't they? We hear them quite a lot at night at the moment, the foxes, causing a lot of problems, bless them. Turbo Stream is out there saying, good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Philly SBB is saying hello to everyone. Good evening to you. Stuart Jackson is saying, evening, Richard and the Veg Army. Good evening to you. Rebecca is out there saying, evening all. Good evening to you. Kate is out there. Good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Anna Jones is out there. Evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Graham Arnold saying, evening all. Good evening to you. Andrew Norris is saying, evening all, glad to join you at the beginning this time. Lovely to have you with us, Andrew. Hope you are well. Hargrave Gas is out there. Evening all, hope you've had a great week indeed. Who else have we got? Margaret Peacock is out there. Evening all. Andrew Norris is saying great intro. Hopefully I did it well. Alison O'Brien is out there. Evening all. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Chili Kate is out there. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. What else have we got? Scott Ambler is joined out there. Good evening to you. And Rebecca saying, being a busy one, I'm grateful for the show so I can sit down for an hour. Been in the garden since 10 a.m. Fantastic. I've been in the garden all weekend, I'll be honest with you. I've been on call this weekend, so I wasn't sure how much gardening I was actually going to get done. But as it turned out, apart from walking the dog and when I've been sleeping, spent a bit of time in the front room last night as well. But apart from those times, I've been out in the garden. I mean, my arms, I know I say I've got quite a tan skin anyway, but my arms really are looking quite tanned at the moment. On that note, actually, I just want to remind everybody, I'm doing this as a bit of a public service announcement. When we're out in the gardens in this sunny weather, don't forget the suntan lotion. I saw a friend of mine, wasn't actually gardening, but was garden related, out yesterday, and he was looking rather burnt, just through not being out in the sun and what have you. So yeah. Suntan lotion, hats on, etc., etc. Just a very important thing for me to say there. Margaret is saying, my dad is here too, and there he is. Good evening. Where's that rain? Indeed. Where is that rain? I'm going to have to do a rain dance soon to try and get that rain coming in because we need it. It is so dry. I have 14 water butts in my garden, and I am running out of water, believe it or not. The 4 I have behind here are all full, but the other ones, the other 10 are running pretty low. We need rain. I'm actually getting some more water butts come along soon as well. So I have more than 14 for next year. Amanda's joined over on the Facebook group as well. Now, anybody watching on the Facebook group, I may not see who you are. Just let us know who you are at the end of a comment. Anyway, let's get into the chat. So I've got videos coming up, which we will get into in just a moment. But the sort of conversation piece that I want to find out is, what are your plant feeding routines? How do you set yourself up for feeding your plants. I know we've discussed feeds a lot in the past, but now, we're into that time of the year where we can start or really need to start feeding our plants. I want to find out what routines you do. Now, for me, I'm borrowing. No, I'm going to let you guys answer that first before I get into it. Andrew Norris is saying, all the rain is here in Croatia nearly every day for the past 3 weeks and more coming. I cannot remember when we last had rain. It has been a while. And with all the rain we had over winter, I thought we were going to be okay. But no, it hasn't rained for so long. And it's getting hot and dry now that we just need a lot more rain to come in. Rebecca says, don't forget to stay hydrated. I always forgot to drink, yet I water my plants. That's a very good point as well. Yeah, hydrated. Drink plenty of fluids, water particularly. I don't like water, I'll admit, but plenty of fluids, plenty of water. Keep yourself topped up. Electrolytes as well. Don't forget the electrolytes as well. Hargrave Gas, anyone know a good place to get cheap water butts? Have a look on Facebook Marketplace. You often find people giving them away on there. Also look in skips when you're driving around as well. They're the cheapest place I've found to find water butts. My sort of thing with water butts is get as many water butts as possible. That's my rule. As many as you can fit in as possible. So Amanda has came in with, I copied your feed in Friday so I don't forget, and also I blood fish and bonus soil before planting anything else. So I've got to admit, feed it Friday wasn't my creation. It was Rebecca, who I'm hoping is gonna shout that's her thing and take credit for it. But it's such a good saying. Every Friday is when I do my feeding like Amanda. It's such an easy way to remember it. The what's the word I'm looking for when you use a phrase to remember something? But feed it Friday. Just every Friday we do the feeding. Now I usually start off because I go down to the allotment, and what I've been doing is either adding bone meal, blood fish and bone, grow more to the beds in order to get the nutrients into the soil. They're all fairly slow release. But now we are getting into real growing period. I feel we need the more liquid feed. So I'm moving on to my comfrey feed on the allotment. And that's just a comfrey plant feed that I make up, and in place of a tomato feed. When I get back home, I do the same sort of thing at home, but I do use more at home. I might use my wormery tea for feeding, or I might use some brought in plant feeds. So I think I've shown you this before. I've got seaweed extract here, which is great. I like using a seaweed feed for really good getting at your roots going on your plants. And then this is an all-purpose liquid feed that I've yet to try, but I was hoping it was going to be my liquid tomato feed. It's not, but that must be somewhere else. So that's a few things that I do to get started. Turbo Stream, sorry. We had grey skies here most of the week. The sun only arrived on Friday. It's been blazing hot sun here all week. It's been nice. Don't get me wrong, but we do need that rain. If it could just rain overnight, that would be fantastic. Graham says wicks are normally good value for the water butts, and wicks are normally good value. I think from you might be able to get good deals thinking about it from your water company as well. They sometimes do good deals on water butts. Or Anna Jones says local councils sell cheap water butts and compost bins too. So might be something to look at there. Turbo Stream, I had pelleted chicken manure in a planting hole with fish blood and bone ducted on the infill soil to give the plants a good start. So when Turbo Stream is planting out his plants, it's a good idea. Pelleted chicken manure goes into the hole that he's dug with fish blood and bone, and again, it's a slow release feed. Chicken manure pellets are actually one that I do use quite often as well. That's a very good for your leeks, particularly your leafy greens, your brassicas, your salads. Good thing for that. Digwell is saying a minimum, that word that I cannot pronounce tonight. And when I was trying to think what the word was when you've got a phrase to remind you of something, mnemonic, I think it's pronounced. The heat has got to me today a little. What else have we got? Nicholas says try the local water board and Southwest Water free. Is that Southwest Water give away free water butts? That's fantastic. I do think that the local water companies should really be giving or encouraging us more and more to save rainwater. I think it just makes sense, not just for the garden. I use the rainwater for washing the car and things like that as well. Anyway, back to our plant feeding routines. Keep sharing what routines you have in place. Turbo Stream is going on to say that I'm having trouble with my words tonight. Then I periodically top dress more chicken manure pellets, hand forked into the soil surface as the weeks go by. So now I find that interesting that you hand fork them into the surface. I tend to just scatter them on top, and then as I hope they get as they get watered, they break down into the soil. It's that slow release feed when it comes to your solids such as bloodfish and bone and grow more, etc., etc. I kind of feel the solid feeds, the chicken manure pellets, the bloodfish and bone and grow more, are a slow release plant. So they're going to be in there for a longer amount of time to slowly release the nutrients, slowly release those minerals into the soil, and there for the plants to take them up. But the liquid feeds like these, I feel they're a much quicker one for the plants to access. They're straight into the soil. The plants can access them quicker and give that much needed boost. And when it comes to feeding as well, I tend to feed my plants right the way through. So let's use my garlic. I use on my garlic plants. I actually use a garlic feed I got from a garlic farm, and I sprinkle that on about once a week. I'm quite a bit of garlic feed I use, or quite regularly, but only a pinch at a time. And I've been using that up until about a month ago. And then I stopped using it because I've noticed that my garlic is starting to, basically the rust is starting to die off the leaves. They're very early white. We're going to start harvesting next week, I'd expect. So we're not too fussed about using or leaving them in right until the plant dies or until the plant comes up. But I do want to try and get the most out of the feed ready so that the plants are still growing right up until the end. Let me know your thoughts on that as well. Digrat says Severn Trent give away loads of water saving devices like gel powder to go in plant pots. Good on them. Good on them. It's just a shame they can't stop the water leaks, is what I say to that. I know it's a very easy answer, as Digwell will attest. Fixing water leaks is not as straightforward as it sounds, but wouldn't it be better if they fixed the water leaks and then than us having to save some water? Now, Nicholas says, I use wood chip at the bottom, which has been fertilized from the chickens. So then I add pellets, blood, fish and bone, and or chicken pellets in planters with wood chip or a rapeseed straw mulch on top. So Nicola, as we no doubt know, she's on a farm. She has high levels of a poison, that name escapes me at the moment, in her soil. So she's having to use planters and raised beds. So I'm guessing the wood chip goes in with the chickens at first, and then it comes out and is put in the bottom of these beds and then all the pellets and the compost and everything added to that to grow in, and then on top those wood chips again. So basically using the chickens for fertilizing your plants is the idea. Arsenic was the poison I was thinking of, high levels of arsenic in the soil. So she's hoping to build up the soil on top and using the chickens. I mean, chicken poop is such a great source of fertilizer. I mean, any poop really is a good source of fertilizer if you break it down like that. Not that I recommend that we go and do that, of course, or we go and poop on our own gardens. It's not something we really want to do. Now, she mentioned mulch as well, which is something else I'm a big fan of. I'm actually talking about this a lot on Monday's podcast. For me, the mulching is one of those jobs I feel should be up there with weeding and watering. It's just something that we have to do to produce the best plants. And I find that what I've been doing this week is chopping up comfrey through the lawnmower to go around my potatoes. And it makes a lovely mulch, but the comfrey, as we know, comfrey makes a great plant feed, but as it rots down as well, that plant feed is going to go on and feed some of my potatoes as well. You don't want tomatoes or any fruiting plants that will benefit from as well. So mulching in many ways is a good form. It's adding organic matter. It's adding that fertilizers and feeds from our mulches, a bit like compost as well. But again, I really want to concentrate on these sort of liquid and solid feeds. Turbo Stream says, I do spread my compost as a mulch in the winter, so hopefully the worms will take it down over the winter to improve the soil. Going to give the green manure another go this autumn. Now, this is a good question. It's something that came up at a recent show, actually, and it got me thinking about compost. Like you, I always thought we'll add our compost over the winter. It'll protect the soil. But what some guy said, and it made a lot of sense to me, is that actually we want to pot our compost on, and it's what I'm going to be doing in the future, just before planting. If we put it on in the autumn, all that rain is going to wash all those nutrients out of the compost into the soil, which is where we want it, of course, but it's going to wash it away from the plants. We really want to get it for the plants. So he recommended actually putting the compost on a couple of weeks before planting so it doesn't get washed out. Don't know what you think on that, but I thought that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, do you really need to mulch over winter unless you've got something growing in the beds? I don't think you really need to mulch over winter. My thoughts. Love to know your thoughts on that as well. Wood chip holds the water in the bottom as it breaks down. A bit like, itchy nose again today. A bit like hugelkultur. Anybody who has ever heard of hugelkultur, where you basically put logs or wood on the bottom and then you add compost on top of the wood, and the wood acts as like a sponge, and it could be wood chips. I've used logs in my my hugelkultur down on the allotment, and it acts like a sponge. It holds onto a lot of that water as well as a lot of the nutrients, and helps bring all that, or helps contain a lot of that water. That's the idea on it. Scott says, I put compost on just before planting. That's what I was just saying. That's my thoughts on it. And Digwell says, I want the goodness to go into the soil, so I add compost to my beds over winter. It was a good thought that when it was shared with me, this idea that why put it on over winter when it's going to wash down? But if you want it in your soil, of course, it makes a lot of sense. To me, it was, I can't think of his name. Chris Collins, that's it. It was him that said it. And he's an organic gardener, quite well known. And it did make me think that perhaps there's something in it, Again, it's one of those that probably needs a bit of an experimentation to find out if it makes any difference. Now, at this point, I just want to remind everyone to please do give us a like, a thumbs up, a follow, and a subscribe. I will say that again. Don't get me wrong later on in the show, but I just want to say that right now to get us off. And what I want to do now is share with you one of our first plot tour videos. This one comes from Turbo Stream. Let's do this right.
Good evening, Veg Podcasters. It's Adrian at Turbo Stream here. So I thought I'd do an impromptu May plot tour. I've not done one for ages. So we're starting off today in the flower bed. So we can see we've got some lovely orange flowers. They might come yellow on here. Not quite sure. Those are poppies. I've got some alliums there. Forget-me-nots are still going. We've got oxide daisies about to come into flower. We've had hardy geraniums down there. We've got some pink campion which I planted. We've got some lupins which I sowed from seed. Hopefully they'll come into flower soon. So it's looking quite nice on the plot actually now, on there. My little perennial flower bed. And there's a couple of foxgloves as well at the back. This is my main growing space. So those are 2 rows of King Edward potatoes. They come up nicely. We've got some broad beans, direct sown broad beans. Those are doing okay. Hopefully we've got French beans coming through here. I sowed a couple of rows, but not much has happened. But I've just noticed a couple poking through. A volunteer potato there. We've got the first signs of a French bean coming up. And this one just behind there. It's been that cold that nothing's germinated. And this is a small amount of peas. And I've got like a wigwam to grow them up. Brassica bed is doing quite well. I've got a fair few amount of brassicas. It's hard to see with the mesh on because the light reflects, but I've got some cabbage, I've got some cauliflower, I've interplanted onions. Just see if that works. So that's okay. And this little area I've marked out with stakes. It's a 4-foot square bed, and I've divided it into squares, 1-foot squares. So the idea is I'm going to have a go at this small space gardening. So hopefully there'll be cucumbers in there, there'll be French beans, there'll be runner beans, all sorts in there. So that's one to watch for the future. We're in the soft fruits area now, and you can just see there's some gooseberries coming on that plant there. I've got 2, these are the red ones. So that's looking good. These are blackcurrants, I've got a few blackcurrants as well. So hopefully those will make it. These are the red currants, I've got a few red currants coming. So these are from cuttings as well, so I'm quite pleased with that. All this little area here was from cuttings. And those have grown up lovely there, I'm pleased with that. And to the side of that we've got the rhubarb. And there looks to be plenty of rhubarb in there, look at all that. I've had some sticks off that, so we'll get a bit of rain to thicken those up. So eventually I want to do away with the other grow part of my rhubarb bed. And this is my little strawberry bed I made out of one of the squares. So they're coming on too bad, all these are runners. And in the middle I've got another couple of, I don't know, those are red currants, I'm not sure. I can't remember if they're red or black, I suppose we'll find out eventually. Yeah, so there's a little strawberry bed. I've also got strawberries around the side of the gooseberries and red currants, just dotted around as and when there was a space. And these are my winter onions. They're starting to come on quite nice now. Can you see that? They're starting to bubble up now. So in a few weeks we'll have some nice onions, since we've got a good crop. Those are sown in about October time, I think. So I've got a bit of space, which hopefully I'll put in. I don't know what should I put in that space there. I'll think of something. So that's a quick view of there. That's my main grown area. That's the flower bed. That's the soft fruit, and there's another square up there, and there's the shed. These are field beans which I sowed this year for seeds, hopefully for overwintering next year. So that was the idea of that. And then behind that I've got some field beans which made it through the winter. So I may as well let them flower and give the bees something to go at, and we'll get even more beans. I may even have some of the beans and try field beans instead of broad beans. That might be better. These are raspberries. Some of the ones at the front, autumn at the back. This is an onion bed. I've put a load of metal wires around to try and stop the foxes digging. So I've given those a watering today. So it's hard to see in this sun. It's very bright, lovely, warm, sunny day. And this is the seed bed. So I've got some lupins sowed from seed. We've got this first row here is wallflowers. We've got some swede growing next to it. Those are supposed to be spring onions. Next to those are leeks. These are some radish. I'm pleased with this seed bed actually. I think it's definitely a good way to certainly grow some crops anyway. And then I have the lid just with a bit of veggie mesh. So that is May's 2023 plot tour from Adrian at TurboStream.
Let me get rid of that. There we go. Thank you so much for that, Adrian, aka TurboStream. Great looking plot there. I've got to say, it does feel like the season really is with us now, doesn't it? We've got all these soft fruits starting to show themselves and what have you. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Kate says, brilliant plot tour. Rebecca says, this looks great. Fantastic. Scott says, looking fantastic, TurboStream. What do you do to protect your soft fruit from birds? I have to net mine. Not ideal, but the birds will eat a lot. If not, only thing seems to work for me. I've got to submit, I don't get many problems with birds usually, but I did some pricking out yesterday, and I put them out on my table, all pricked out in pots of water to soak them up. These are nasturtiums actually. They're getting ready to go out into the garden. And about an hour later, I came back to them and something had lifted out a load of the nasturtiums and kicked all the compost everywhere and what have you. A bit annoying, and I think it was a bird. So I know what you mean. The problems with birds are going on. Now, better tell Charles Dowden he's doing it wrong then. And TurboStream also makes a note that Charles Dowden says nutrients don't wash away in the winter. He only spreads composts and uses no extra feeding. I'm not doubting anybody. I'm just asking what your opinions are on, because it made me think on what Chris Collins said about only really spreading the compost just before you plant. I think what I might do is an experiment this year. Like, I'm not sure how, but an experiment where we compost half a bed over winter and the next one in the spring, just to see if there is any difference and see what happens. Andrew Norris says, nice one, TurboStream. You have it well laid out and labelled. Impressive. Thank you for showing us. Labels. Always say include your labels. So important. Anna Jones says, great plots. Seedbed seems like, seedbed seems like a great way to save on compost. Indeed it was. Brian's Garden and Polytunnel was joined. Hello, hope you are well. Thank you so much for your comment on last week's video live stream as well. That went down very well, to say the least. Skinny Jean Garner's also joined. Hello, hope you are recovered from your sunburn yesterday, because you did look very red. TurboStream says, I haven't noticed much bird damage on the soft fruit, to be honest. Time will tell, I suppose. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it, when it comes to things like birds, because I hate netting. I hate nets. I get annoyed with them. They're in the way. I've got them over my brassicas on the allotment at the moment, and it's just so annoying to have to remove them to get in there to do any weeding. I don't usually net them, but I thought I would do it this year, and I wish I didn't. My ones at home, I've never net. I never net my ones at home. Okay, Roxy will jump out there and chase any off, but they don't seem to get attacked by anything. Same as the soft fruit. I mean, we make some losses with the soft fruit, but I don't mind it too much, personally. Kate Spratt says, last year the birds had every single gooseberry and pear. I wasn't quick enough and had no idea they ate pears. I was just thinking, are you sure it was the birds that ate the pears, not somebody who came along and nicked them? I'm sure they would eat the fruit, don't get me wrong, but I would have thought they would have a tough time eating a whole pear, let alone all the pears on an entire tree. My thoughts there. Brian says magpies are my greatest bugbear for ripping plants out of trays. It could have been the magpies. We do get pigeons that are nesting in our garden. They come back every year, and I think it's the pigeons, but could be magpies. I can't think I've seen any magpies though. Birds. I mean, I don't mind the birds. They are part of nature. They are part of gardening. It is annoying when they do eat your produce or dig up your plants. That they're getting. Roxy has a good habit of digging up my plants as well. My dog. I planted out two rows of leeks, a row of pickling onions. She comes along and dug the whole lot up. So annoying, but it has to happen. Turbo Stream says, I hate knitting too. Most of the fruit seems to be well hidden. The strawberry fruits always get eaten though. Perhaps they eat them first. There's something about the colour red that does attract birds, I believe. They do say if you take a stone and paint it red and put it in your strawberry patch, the birds will try and peck on that red stone, realise it's a stone, and bugger off. So I think it is something about the red colour which draws them to the strawberries, of course. So, yeah. Stuart Jackson says, I have to cover all my fruit as the birds always get to the harvest first. Yeah. I mean, you've got to take the methods that you have to do. As I said, I get annoyed with the nets. I've said many times the time I found a bird trapped in netting, but actually netting over my brassicas in particular, I just find it a faff to lift the netting out the way to get into weed and then pull it back. I know that it sounds very, very lazy, but I'm the type of person that just wants to get on, and if I can't get on, then it goes to the back of the queue. I've read that one. And Hargrave says the birds take all. That reminds me, I think we did did we do a scarecrow competition? Don't forget, we're doing the alternative veg grower village show, whatever we're calling it, in October. And I'm sure the scarecrow was one of the things that we have on that. You can find the details on that on the Veg Grower Podcast. .co.uk. There is a blog post with all the details. I'll have to re-release that. I keep forgetting to remind you about this online show, alternative online show that we're doing. So yeah, keep doing it. Skinny Jean says, I've never met Annette. Who is she? Oh dear. Scott says, yeah, I'm not a fan of netting, but it's a real problem on my plot. The years I haven't netted, they have eaten a lot. I took the netting off my purple sprouting this year, went back the next day, it was all gone. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say really. I mean, I don't get many problems I get the occasional problems. But I just find either a scarecrow or bird scare tape, which is like creates a reflection, scares birds off. CDs hanging up also work at scaring the birds off. I just find other ways personally work. Hargrave Gas says the birds take all my cherries, gooseberries, and blackberries that are underneath the apple trees. Seems to be okay. They are hidden a bit. I don't think. I do think they're going for the easy stuff. That's what I think. They're going for the easy stuff, the stuff they can easily get to. Brian's Garden Polytunnel says, I don't even use nets on my brassicas anymore. Grandad never did. He just checked under the leaf for 10 minutes every day and he grew more than I do. Oh, was that for the cabbage white butterflies? Yeah. That makes sense. He took a daily check and never had any problems with cabbage white butterflies. That does make sense. On the brassicas. Again, cabbage white butterflies can be a problem, but I don't find it too bad. Turbo Stream says all our gardens / allotments are different with wildlife, I guess. Some YouTubers seem to get away with brassicas with no protection. Yeah, it is true. We are all different. We all have different methods of growing things. Some of us can get away with it, some can't. As I said, I'm quite close to the coast here, so we do get away with quite a bit. Seagulls, I think, do scare a lot of the birds off because they're so big. I know the chickens scare the seagulls off as well. Nicholas says, the blackbirds get my tall cherry tree fruit. I need to pick it before they are ripe. And she also says, if you don't like nets like me, we need to build walking cages. That is another option, actually. And I have thought about building walking cages. The trouble I have is I don't grow my brassicas in the same place. And my fruit tends to be not really in a walk-in-a-old place. Although if we redo the allotment in a different design in the future, perhaps that's something we can look at instead. Incorporate that in perhaps. Again, I don't get many problems, so it's a bit overkill perhaps. Digwell says, I used to use dangling CDs to deter the pigeons. One of them left a note. We are fed up with Queen. How about some reggae? Good stuff. And Digwell says a cage is just a net on legs. Yeah. I can see the advantage of a walk-in cage. A bit like a greenhouse, just somewhere to quickly nip in. In fact, one of my plot's sort of neighbours is up the road from me, but I know him very well. He's built a really nice walk-in cage, and it perhaps that's something we can think about in the future. I'm on the peach iced tea tonight, by the way. I'm feeling so warm. I had to get the peach iced tea. Peach iced tea. Scott says, I'm working on my walking cage for my fruit. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I've had so many ideas going on in my head this week about different things I want to build. Finding the time at the time. Margaret says, alternative autumn shows smallest potato, smallest squash, largest tomato, largest strawberry, wonkiest carrot, weirdest vegetable, longest cucumber, Mr. Potato, ugliest vegetable. I thought there was a scarecrow one. I know there's a wheelbarrow one. I thought there was a scarecrow category as well. So all the details are on the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Go in there and search for there we go. Tallest sunflower, best flower, most overgrown mint, weed flower arrangement, muddiest boots, most bashed up wheelbarrow, best fudgy box, fruit and veg, rainbow planter, best garden craft. I thought perhaps there was. So Turbo Stream says, my supporters club seeds haven't arrived yet. Hopefully they arrive soon. I posted them on Wednesday, so I would imagine any day now. Probably Monday if you haven't got them yet. Brian says, a walking cage won't work for me. Wife thinks I've taken up enough room in the garden with my polytunnel, of course. Yeah. Hargrave, I've got my seeds sowing this week on today. Me too, funny enough. No scarecrow, but there is a Mr. Potato Man. Okay, there wasn't a scarecrow. We'll do that next year, I think. Kate says his seeds arrived yesterday. Excellent. Other categories as well. Right, let's have a look. On that note, actually, Digwell says, we can't have them here as there's a rule, no structure over 6 feet high. Well, I suppose a shorter one would work, but a pain bending over. Yeah, I mean, that's where I get annoyed as well when I'm bending over. It leads to a bad back, doesn't it, at the end of the day? Right, let's have a look. We've got another video that's been sent in, another plot tour. This one's from Kate.
Evening Veg Army. So this is just a very quick plot tour. I've got my tomatoes in this little polytunnel here and some row cabbages because I asked my husband to plant a couple of tomatoes and he planted cabbages as well. But that's fine, I'll see how they're doing here. But as you can see, we have already got little tomatoes. Yep, they're already starting. So that's earlier than I expected, actually. Right then, you'll have to excuse the state because obviously I've been not too well recently. So yeah, this is actually where the raspberries are, somewhere in there, I think. But I'm going to be moving them soon because it's not making great use of the space, and this greenhouse needs properly clearing out. It's a bit of a state. Here's my new shed that's going to be getting painted soon. These are the black currants. They're coming along. I moved those and I was really hoping that they'd be okay, and yeah, turns out they have been okay. This is a honeyberry bush, and as you can see here, I've already got some honeyberries on it. I actually thought I was going to lose this last year. With the heat, it really just seemed to dry. But yeah, it came back. I was pretty pleased about that. Here we have got the pears. Let's see if I can get to them this year before the birds eat them all. Last year I was just not fast enough. Oh dear. Yeah, this meadow is actually supposed to be a bit of a pathway, but I've got a brand new mower that I should be able to do better with because it's a self-propelled petrol mower. So, but actually hidden in here somewhere are my gooseberry bushes. Again, this is another one I'm hoping to beat the birds to this year because they had every single one just as they ripened. And I've got some of my apple trees. I went on an apple tree pruning course and that really helped, so I took them right the way back and it's actually flourishing a lot better. So I'm hoping for some bigger apples this year actually. Here's the massive amount of rhubarb that comes up, and that actually extends, well, the whole way down there under that grass somewhere. I will sort that out soon, promise. Well, at least that's what I tell myself anyway. I'll just do what I can when I can. Right then, so the next bit, and my pride and joy at the moment, are my lettuces. I get these from Real Seeds, and I get the mix, so you have lots of different colours. Let me see if I can just get this up here so we can pop this under. There we go. You can get some different coloured ones. I use Morton's Secret Mix. Don't know what it is because I guess it's secret. Here we have garlic. That's coming along. Probably not too far off actually. And then as we go along here, we have got some blueberries. And there we go. They're coming along at the moment. And here I have put down 2 new areas for my brassicas. Let's take a little peek and see how they're doing. There we go. Something's coming up. Oh my god, another potato. Seriously, I am finding these everywhere. I didn't plant potatoes there at any point. Have I planted potatoes? Same here, look. I'm going to be haunted by potatoes for the rest of my life. Everywhere I turn around, there's little row of potatoes. Look, one here. Thing is, I planted potatoes in this area last year, and now they're over here. I don't know how they jumped. And ooh, here we go. We have got strawberries. So yeah, well, they're looking nice. I'm gonna have to put a net over these soon, because yeah. And oh, the potatoes are looking a little bit sad. So yeah, definitely need to get on watering them again. This is a giant elephant garlic. One of my plot neighbours actually kindly gave me some of that. And my carrots. Let's see if we can just lift this up a little bit here and see. There we go. I think they're going to need thinning very, very soon. This is my new bean frame. So I've had it gone sort of in a little bit of a horseshoe so that it can climb up and around. And as you can see, they're starting to come along as well. Don't know what this little fella's doing over here, but this actually is one of the peas that I'm growing for the Heritage Seed Company. I'm a seed guardian. So, and oh my goodness, here we go. It's a lovely flower on it. Oh, well, quite pleased about that actually. I was a little bit worried about how they'd get on, but I think I need to tie them in a little bit better. And my last polytunnel, again, you'll have to excuse the mess because, yeah, it's been difficult for me to get here. But in here somewhere, what on earth are those weeds doing? Anyway, we've got peppers going along down that side and around this side. We've got some aubergines coming up. And of course the obligatory potato that keeps haunting me. I really just have no idea why. And I've got some melons and cucumbers over there as well. They're going to need planting out very, very soon, hopefully. But the good news is I am doing a little bit better health-wise. I'm starting to build up and I'm doing a bit slowly. And yeah, hopefully this will get me back on track. Oh, and a poached egg plant. After seeing Digwell's beautiful ones, I decided to get some for myself. I thought that they were quite nice. And this here is another pride and joy of mine. Looks a little bit messy at the moment, but it is my repurposed wheelbarrow. And as you can see, I put some alpine plants in there. There's some little poppies and some wildflowers, that's just to keep it going. Right then, so that's it for my plot tour. Hopefully lots more to come. But yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Let me get rid of that. There we go. That was another plot tour. Great plot tours we've been getting tonight. Thank you so much. That was Kate, who is in the audience tonight. There she is saying hello to Idaho, who has joined. Hello, Idaho. What I liked, I noticed this in your polytunnels, Kate, is the use of strulch. I saw a couple of bags of that. I mean, I used strulch once before. Strulch is a mulch. It's mineralized straw, so straw that's been shredded. It's got added minerals and nutrients to it. I've used it once before. It does a fantastic job. It adds, obviously, we're talking about feeds and fertilizers. It adds all that feeds and fertilizers into the soil as part of the mulch. Mulches the soil, stopping weeds grow. The two downsides I found with it anyway, when I first put it on, it stunk for about 2 weeks. And it wasn't ideal because it did smell a bit like a farmer's yard. And the second thing is, of course, I thought or felt it can be a bit expensive. It was about £10 a bag, and a bag did about 2 beds. So if I was to do my entire allotment, that would be about 70 quid on the allotment alone, let alone what I did at my home. Just my thoughts, but for what you get for it, when it does a job, I think it is great. Kate says at that, I would get away with it. I'm only a 5 foot high, talking about the 6 foot restriction that's on structures that he has and cage frames. Turbo Stream is saying, anyone else have been having trouble with germination this year? Even the Supporters Club French beans, only one has germinated so far. Normally are just so direct and they all come up. French beans have been a little tricky this year. I'm with you on that as well. But peas for me have been a bit tricky too. So Hargrave Gas has also had the same trouble with French beans and runner beans as well. I think it's been a little bit too hot for them to germinate, in my opinion. And that's why I think we're getting a lot of trouble. Scott says, looking great. I like the bean frame. That was a good idea as well. Turbo Stream says it's hard to keep on top of your plot if you are ill. As I found out in 2021, it still looks good, Kate. Plenty growing there, indeed. Plenty growing there. Lovely plot tour. Great tour, Kate. Kate says thank you. Chili Kate says lovely patch, Kate. Kate, I'm trying to get back on my plot after breaking ankle. It's still a bother, so now know how you feel. Indeed, yeah, we all know how we do that. Strulch is fab. It really helps, particularly in the polytunnel, to keep the moisture in. It does a fantastic job. I use lawn clippings a lot. You hear more about this on the podcast, but Strulch, fantastic. I found it to be anyway. I felt with the price of it. did well, however. As I said last week, I had one bad experience with Strolch, but as I bought 8 bags, I persevered and all is well. What was your bad? Can you remind me? What's your bad experience? Alison says, I love eating lots of salads. Yeah, me too. I'm having trouble with salad leaves germinating this year, actually thinking about it. A lot of problems with that, I found. Chili Kate says, we've been trying out Strolch. Good. And Digwell says, Strolch was on offer for TNM Morgan Club members last week. Yeah, I mean, I've only used Strolch the once, and I was really impressed with it. I will admit, I was impressed with it. I just don't think I could. I've been a bit tight, perhaps, but I don't think I could necessarily justify the cost of it. And the smell was a bit bad. Brian's Garden Polytunnel said, I found putting in a damp tissue for a couple of days helped germinate beans. As I said, beans have been a bit of a problem. I'm with you, and I think it is due to dryness. I've got, and when I do the grow along video in a little bit later on, I've redone the peas, and I'll show you what I've done with those to try and hopefully get them to germinate. What have we got? My veggie pod is good for germination, a seed bed. Yeah, I mean, that makes, excuse me, that a veggie pod, obviously, it's that moisture, I think. That's where we're having problems with beans. It's that moisture, but the veggie pod is good at consistently keeping it moist. But I could be wrong on that. It's just my thoughts on it. Stuart Jackson says, Strolch, could you not just use straw if you chopped it up? The Strolch has extra minerals and stuff added to it to make it a little bit better. But you can use straw. I've used straw. I didn't chop it up, but I used straw in the allotment. And I just found that the couch grass would, because it's quite thick, the couch grass would grow through it. So I don't always recommend straw as a mulch, but Strolch is good as well. On that horse rape seed bedding, good as a mulch too, cheaper too. Yeah, I mean, you'll hear more about my mulches on the podcast tomorrow because I'm a big fan of it. One that I have been a fan of is this actually. It's called Easy Mulch, and what it is. Let me just bring it up on the overhead camera for you. Is that 2? Yeah, there we go. So it's like these compressed straw pellets. When you put these in the top of a pot and add water, they swell up. You probably might have seen this in the video. You see my tour video of the home, you will see that swelling up on the top of my pot. That swells up and expands. And that's been a very good mulch for pots, I've found. It's only a mulch. It doesn't have any added nutrients as far as I'm aware, but I found it to be really, really good. In fact, when I'm at Gardener's World in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be buying another bag of that as well. Let's see. Digwell says, I planted the club broccoli seedlings through a mulch of Strolch and everyone was slug eaten the following day. Defo slugs and not pigeons, as the leaves were holed and not pecked. There we go. Yes. Now I remember you saying about that. Yeah. Digwell says, oh my God, they stink. Well, these ones, I don't find they stink at all. I found the Strolch stunk, but those ones don't stink at all. I found anyway. I was quite impressed with them. Well, I really am impressed with them. I've had that bag for about 2 years, so it does last quite a while. Turbo Stream says, I sank my beans too and planted the chitted ones. Still patchy germination. I'm getting the same problem with peas. Kate says, my beans aren't as far along as I would have expected, but the same with the tomatoes. Looking back at last year's photos, they were much bigger last year. I think many are having the same problem, same issues. Yeah, I would say, I think a lot of people are saying that things are about a month behind this year, which I kind of agree with, about a month behind. So, it does make a difference. That's the wrong one. Brian's got to go. See you later. Take care, buddy. Lovely to see you. Turbo Stream, the parsnips are failure too. Yeah, parsnips failure for me as well. I'm not focusing on the failures. Parsnips, carrots, peas, not necessarily a failure, but trouble with salad leaves. Bit of a problem this year. Dear Grouse says different noses. LOL. I'm just thinking, I'm like, smells absolutely fine. Smells absolutely fine. So maybe it is different noses. Digwell says, my runners at home are leaping away. The alarms, the ones on the plot are very slow. I'm trying to think. And mine's the other way. The runner beans on the allotment are doing better than ones at home. The ones at home are in a new bed, and it's very difficult, this bed, although that could be the problem. That could be a bit of a problem. I mean, I know underneath the bed where the runner beans are growing, it was where I had my old shed, so the ground is a little bit tough around there. But hopefully they will do okay. They would produce beans and go on and grow. But like I say, French beans, peas are a bit of a problem. But there's still time to sow lots more seeds, especially beans, French beans and runner beans. Now, as I said, we do, on that note of problems I've had with peas, let's do the pea grow along, and we'll come back to that afterwards.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another grow along. Now this week I am sowing peas. I've said in previous videos I've been having trouble getting peas to germinate, so we can have a second batch at them. Now if you look just down here, I've actually soaked these peas overnight, which isn't something I usually do. This variety is Kelvin and Wonder, and when these peas went in here they were quite wrinkly, but as you can see, by soaking them overnight they've expanded and they've gone straight. So I'm hoping this is going to make them a little bit more successful with germination this year. I've had a lot of trouble just getting pea seeds to germinate. They've been very sporadic. Normally I would also be sowing these straight into the ground, but what I'm trying now is just to pot them in these root trainers with multi-purpose compost, and hopefully that's going to work out and these are going to grow. Now, as always with these grow alongs, I invite you to share your own growing tips and tricks for whatever vegetable we are growing. And as I said, this week it is all about the peas. So in the comments below, just share your own tips and tricks about how you go about growing peas, and it would be most grateful. Now personally, what I find with peas is that they are usually very, very easy to grow. Usually I stick the seeds in the ground. I add some small canes in for the peas to grow up. They germinate and they grow and they climb up the canes. Now adding the canes is actually a very important tip, because without the canes they have nothing to grow up, and peas have a tendency to start to flower when the tendrils have something to grow up. So for me, biggest tip I can give you is get the canes in. Some people might use nets or things like that. Again, let me know in the comments what you do differently, and it'd be great to find out. Now ultimately there's many different types of peas. You've got the standard garden pea, you've got sugar snap peas, you've got petit pois peas, lots and lots of choice to keep us going with whatever peas you may want. And you know, they're all pretty much easy to grow as each other. Usually, I've got to keep saying usually, because this year I've had so many problems. Well, that's got the seeds sown, and we'll have to keep an eye on them in future videos just to see how they get on. I'm not going to pot these in the greenhouse. I think it's going to be too hot in there for them to germinate, so I'm going to keep them out here until they show signs of life, and then we will plant these out. Might go down here in the home plot, or some might end up down on the allotment as well. Keep for watching to find out more. Now let us know in the comments your own tips and tricks.
There we go. Peas, like I said, it's interesting. It was, where did I see a comment? I think it was Nicola. Where is it? Where is it? There. Here we go. My beans only planted a few days ago. Peas have not done too bad, about 10% not germinated. See, I would have said 10% of mine have germinated. It's been so bad. So we'll keep trying. Digwell says, I do my peas exactly the same as you have just shown. I use jute netting. So when I lift the old peas, the whole lot goes in the communal compost without worrying about separating it all. That's a good idea. That's one of the reasons I stopped using netting, is actually because of how fiddly it became. But jute netting, where'd you get it from? Where'd you get your jute netting from, please, Digwell? Jenny has joined. Hi, guys. Sorry I'm missing the show. Travelling home from half term. I'll catch up. Lovely to see you anyway. Hope you are well. Stuart has also had to run off. See you all next week and happy gardening. Turbo Streamer said, is that called easy mulch? I might try a bag of it. Yes, it is called easy mulch. I think it's very, very good particularly on pots. I wouldn't want to use it on a bed, but on pots it is very good. Digwell's saying it smells, and he means when it's wet. I've not found it. I've not found it smell when it was wet. And I used it, when I first used it, I used it on my blueberries. You know how much water they like. I can't say I noticed it. It just, for me, it just creates that beautiful mulch over the top of the pots. It really does do well at stopping our weeds growing in so many ways. I mean, as I said, I bought that bag about 2 years ago, and I'm still using it today. I'm probably going to end up buying another bag in a couple of weeks' time at Gardener's World. Great stuff. That's all I can say. Great stuff. Scott says, I sow my peas in guttering and completely soak the compost, and I don't water them until I plant them out. I tried growing them in guttering a few years ago, funnily enough. It just didn't work for me. I've still got a piece of gutter. It just didn't really seem to work for me, in all honesty. But I'll give that a try. Jute netting, is that a new thing to me? No idea. I'm not sure I've heard of, or may have seen it, but not really taken much notice. Digwell says his came from Gardening Naturally. That's the website, Gardening Naturally? And Kate says, I love the jute netting too. Got mine from a local garden centre. I will have a look in the local garden centre and see if they are selling them. If they are, I will buy them and give it a try. You know, I'm all for it. I do like it. Like, that's why I use twine or jute for tying in my tomatoes and things, because coming into the season, we can then just throw it into the compost bin and it helps build our compost up. Now, we've got some photos to go through in just a moment as well, but I'd like some ideas on what we should do in our next grow along, what seeds we should sow next week. We could do lettuce, I suppose. We could do some more French beans or runner beans. Anything you can think of, let me know in the comments what to do for our next grow along. And added to that, I'm thinking about the subject for next week. I've got 3 different ideas written down. What I thought I'd start doing is trying to get you guys to share your ideas on what we could use as a discussion topic each week. So the 3 ideas I've got is what winter veg are you growing at the moment? What winter veg are you sowing at the moment? Next, we've got your compost making tips. Do you make enough compost? How do you go about making your compost? And the third one is one I thought up today is, have you used Grow Your Own to help you lose weight? Obviously, this is something personal to me. I've realized I've always known I need to lose weight. It's just I eat too much food, and I'm really trying my hardest to lose weight. So 3 options for the topic for next week: winter veg, compost making, or weight loss. Let me know what you think, as well as what seeds to sow next week too. Deergwell says basically smelly string netting made from Corchulus loterius and Corchulus capsuleus. Yeah, and Brian's gone and Polytunnel has returned. He is back. Hello and welcome back. I think you just missed our Pea Grow Along, which will be a video coming out later this week on our channel as well. And I'd like share your ideas on or tips on how to grow peas. Scott says winter veg gets my vote. I think he was the one that suggested this idea. At this point as well, don't forget to like and don't forget to give us a thumbs up, give us a follow and a subscribe, and click the notifications so you know when we go live. I've got to say that each week, otherwise I get told off by both Facebook and YouTube. But on the odd time that I've forgotten, I actually get an email telling me off for not saying it. So yeah. Idaho says I use hemp strings, so if I can't find the netting, I will improvise. I did think of that. I did think of making a netting out of the jute string, but then I thought that's going to take me forever, so I don't bother. Alison O'Brien has given us a thumbs up. Fantastic. And Digwell says that was a quick meal to Brian. Brian come back and says I'm on a diet. There we go. Yeah, I know I need to go on a diet. I know I need to lose weight. Still eating as well. Turbo Swim says if my seeds arrive, butternut squash for a grow along. Yes, butternut squash are coming out, so that is one that we could do. Definitely butternut squash. So far, that's the only ones. Digwell says I prefer hemp twine to jute twine as it lasts longer. Yeah. What is it? I bought some new trousers this week. Made that out of hemp. For apparently they're meant to be a lot cooler in the summer to wear. So that's what I was thinking of wearing. That's why I bought them as well, because it's going to get very, very hot. You know, I know hemp used to be very popular for growing to make clothes during World War II. So it's making a comeback as far as I'm concerned. It's returning back to us. Right, I'll keep thinking on what you want me to sow next week. We've got a vote for butternut squash and a vote for the winter veg so far. Let's have a look at the photos that you guys have been posting this week. So first of all, this is the Chili Kate and the Chili Fields allotment with their new shed. As you know, we encourage people to share a photo of their allotment on the first of each month, and this is what the chilies have sent us. Looks fantastic, doesn't it? So much growth, so many things springing into life. Next, Scott Seed Supporter Pack has arrived. 6 packs of seeds, as always, and a newsletter. They are all sent in the post, so if you haven't received yours, expect them to arrive any moment now. Next, we have Kate. Now, her ground is looking very dry, as you can see, with all these cracks appearing in the ground. This is something I have on my allotment as well. In fact, I've got a plot tour of the allotment video coming out later this week. You can actually see the difference between where I've added organic matter over the years to where I haven't. So bear that in mind and just think, you know, we need that rain. We need the rain. Steve, aka Digwell, has also shared his allotment plot photo. Again, so much life going on in there. So many things that are growing and springing into life. I can see there's lots of brassicas, lots of plants in pots. I'm guessing the potatoes are in the black pots. Yeah, just so much going on. So much going on. It suddenly feels like everything has kicked in. Now, Chris has got his compost pile sorted. He's, you know, this is a problem that we all have, trying to get enough compost. There's quite a few bags there, but I'm sure they will soon get used up. Next, Stephen has also shared this plot photo from his plot. This is very, very small plot, I've got to say. I've been there. It's very, very small, but he certainly packs lots into it. Anne, she shared her tools. This was from the conversation that we were having last week about differently abled people and how they garden, and the tips and tricks for that. These were the tools that Anne shared and spoke about with the extra handle to make life easier. Definitely works. Jen has shared a photo of her plot, her garden. Well, actually, it's her mum's garden, but she's just spent a bit of time tidying it up. Mother-in-law, sorry, one of the two. She's had to take a bit of a hiatus lately, but she's getting back into it, and this is what we can expect to see coming up. So please do keep sharing those photos. You can email them to me, richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Send them to me via social media, or you can post them in our Facebook group. And please do keep posting those photos. Lots of stuff going on in our Facebook group. If you're not a member, go check it out. Go check it out indeed. Tigro is saying, off topic, have you tried bamboo fiber socks and pants? Bloody marvelous. Yes, I have tried them. They are pretty amazing. It has to be said. So comfortable. Squash and pumpkins for Nicola. So that could be the butternut squash. We've still got 2 butternut squash left over from last year, believe it or not. They're just sitting in our kitchen. They're fantastic how well they are lasting. Turbo Stream, time restricted eating helps with a weight loss. I never eat after 6 p.m. Helps you gut the microbes too. Yeah, I'm hoping to tie that in with Grow Your Own, but I know what you mean. The trouble is at 6 o'clock I could still be working, so I've got to be a bit careful with that. Kate says, I was actually going to make my own jute netting. I've been looking at making fishing net videos on YouTube, which would be the same thing. Also, a very relaxing activity since I like knitting crochet. You've obviously got a lot more patience than me, is all I can say. I just don't have the patience for that anymore. I tried in the past. I just don't have the patience for it. Or the time factor involved either, really. But definitely, I know what you mean. It's a trouble, isn't it? I've got a sort of saying when it comes down to gardening, and we often talk about gardening and trying to make it for free, and you often find that anything that we can get for free, there's normally a time involved and it costs you time. So one of the examples would be using pallet wood to build sheds and things. Excuse me. Now, of course, you can get pallet wood for free, but then you've got to spend time processing that wood to make it usable. It just takes time, and that's the cost of things that don't cost money. Turbo Stream says, I would like to make some netting, but knowing my luck, I would end up tied in knots. Yeah, that's exactly why I don't get involved in it either. Tied up in knots, or always happens, doesn't it? Oxygen coming into my face. Tied up in knots, or just won't come out the way I would like it. So I'm going to buy some jute knitting. Where am I tomorrow? Sort of near a garden centre tomorrow, so I might run in, although it's not a very good garden centre, if I'm honest with you. The one I'm thinking of, I'm not mentioning names, obviously, but the one I'm thinking of is pretty poor, so it probably won't have anything that I want in it. But yeah, jute knitting is definitely on my list. We're hoping that these peas that we've planted this week, we've sown this week, are actually going to germinate fully. I'm mildly optimistic. Just definitely can see that they've swollen up. So hopefully they've taken on enough water to try and get them to germinate. It's just a shame that the ones in the past haven't germinated at all well. But like from what I'm seeing tonight, many other people are having similar problems with other seeds. French beans, salads, etc. That might be something we have to talk about at a future episode. I'm not sure. I think the decision has been made for next week for winter veg. What winter veg are you growing, and what are you sowing at the moment for your winter veg? I did do a podcast on that. Was it the Monday just gone? It must have been the Monday just gone, where I discussed that very topic. of sowing out for winter, and it's certainly a time of year that we want to start sowing our winter crops, isn't it? Except for Brussels sprouts or purple sprouting broccoli, they need to be in the ground already to get through the winter. But certainly cabbages, cauliflowers, kales, turnips, Swedes, things like that. We'll get into that next week. I don't want to take it away. Has anybody got any final thoughts on the feeds and fertilizers routine? I certainly feel that the Feed It Friday for me has been the biggest benefit because it sets that day in my mind just for feeding our plants. Turbo Extreme says, I met my cousin in a garden centre this week. She travelled up from Southampton. The selection of plants was quite poor and the coffee was expensive. I'm trying to think when I last went to a garden centre. I've got to admit, they seem to be doing okay. But coffee is always expensive, especially at the moment. But as we said, this year things are expensive for obvious reasons. Things are expensive. We just have to make the most of it. Nicola says, I don't have a garden centre. There you go. The joys of living out in the sticks. What about a plant nursery? Do you have a plant nursery? Digwell says, so sad to be thinking of winter veg 4 days into June. Funny enough, that's exactly what I said when I started the podcast as well. You know, here we are. It's a beautiful hot day and we're thinking about winter veg. But we've got to, because if we leave it too late, it's going to be too late to grow our winter veg in order to get harvests throughout the winter. So we've got to think about it now. June is the time, May, June, time to start sowing winter crops. Remember that mulches feed the soil to some extent too. Yeah, organic matter, mulches are always good and help feed the soil. Be it well-rotted horse manure, compost, grass clippings, leaves, etc., etc. So many to have. Nicholas says, I don't have a feeding routine. Well, this is what we're trying to establish. I mean, I'm knowing you've got several acres. It's probably a bit difficult to have a feeding routine. Anyway, my allotment is mostly to grow food for winter storage. Yeah, that's fair enough. But we'll get into that next week, so you can share your thoughts on that. But I think, you know, why not grow a few cabbages for the winter and see how you get on? Digwell, when I water the plot, not often, I always add seaweed concentrate to the watering can, just giving something back to the soil. Yeah, I think you said that a while ago, and since you've said that, I've been doing that as well. And it definitely does make a difference. Definitely does seem to help produce stronger roots in our plants. I'm a big fan of seaweed in the garden anyway. But also, just give him something back to the soil. I always think that when we feed, we're not actually feeding our plants, we're feeding the soil. And that goes a long way into building up the soil or building the nutrients in the soil for our plants to access. Alison says, June the 21st, midsummer day, it starts to get a minute dark. I know. I mean, I'm sort of got some gaps in the shed just here, and I'm looking through and seeing sunlight still coming through as if it's brilliant daylight, and it'll stay nice and light until probably about 9 o'clock, 9:30, which is great. The blooming seed germination, that is, assuming the blooming seed germination, that is, yeah. Digwell says, after 24 years in the Navy, I find it hard not to eat at 8 p.m. Yeah. I'm not, yeah, when we come to that subject, if we do come to it, it's more about how you use Grow Your Own to help with weight loss. Trying to get me back into shape, basically. I know what my problem is. It's not the, I overeat. Now, Turbo Extreme says, it's the microbes that feed the plants, I thought. Microbes play a role, but what really feeds the plants is the nutrients. So the plant puts its roots out and it's searching for water, obviously, but also nutrients in the form of potassium, magnesium, phosphorus, nitrogen, etc., etc. So that's what the plant is feeding. The microbes help break down the soil, break down the organic matter to release those nutrients into the soil and help with the communication. And no, that mycorrhizal fungi tends to help with communication more than microbes. Microbes play a role, but it's the nutrients that the plants are after feeding, if that makes sense. That's how I understand it anyway. I'm sure somebody would come back and tell me I'm wrong, and you're more than welcome to. That's what this entire show is about, trying to get the information out there from everybody. Yeah. Just looking at the weather. Just want to have a quick look at the weather and see if there is any rain forecasted for the next time. And it's bringing it up right now. The 10-day forecast, sun. Nothing but sun. So going to be a bit of a problem. Bit of a problem indeed if we don't get rain. As we said, getting lots of cracks in the soil that are breaking down and creating a bit of a problem. But never mind that. What I like to do when it comes to watering, I try and store as much rainwater as possible, and I'm going to constantly try and build that up. Then we might have to resort back onto using grey water. Don't know how we're going to do that, in all honesty. I've been having a chat with wife about that, but we'll see what happens. Turbo Stream says missing breakfast is okay too. I've got my own thoughts on that. But if we ever do that subject, we'll discuss that at that point. A very complicated subject, talking about the microbes here. It's all about the circle of life. Don't start singing the Disney song Hello Al. Yeah, it is all about the circle of life, and it's microbes play a role, but so does everything else. You've got to think of it as a system. Microbes break down things, as does the fungi and other things, and the plants mine that. It's very complicated. Digwell says Scorchio for the weather, indeed. And Nicholas says Turbo, unless you're diabetic, talking about missing breakfast. It's, in fact, yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons I want to lose weight so I don't become diabetic. Not that I'm in risk of it as far as I'm aware, but I need to keep my weight down. I'm not happy with my weight, as you can tell. But that'll be a subject at some point. Anyway, we've got about 5 minutes to go. If anybody has any final thoughts on tonight's show, or on the subjects that we have discussed, or what we might do in the future, plenty of time. What I find interesting is that we started off with one subject and then ended up talking about netting, and then we get on to netting for peas and things like that. So that's what I like to find out about this, and always good to get that discussion going. Alison says I couldn't skip breakfast as I like having breakfast. I'm with you on that. I like having breakfast as well, and I do find I'm hungrier in the morning on the way to work. And if I've got my lunch there, that tends to get eaten if I skip breakfast. So I'm moving on to smoothies for breakfast at the moment. And Turbo Stream agree, yes, Nicola, good point, well presented about the diabetic and skipping breakfast. I know this was completely off topic. There was a guy, Max Lowry, I think his name was, and he suggested intermittent fasting, which I did do for a bit, where you only eat for, what was it, 8 hours of the day. So I didn't eat till 11 o'clock in the morning and stopped eating at 7 o'clock at night. And I did lose weight for it, but I soon put it back on it. I was feeling a bit weak when I had the big, heavy jobs, where you have to lift heavy stuff and really dig deep for the energy. So it didn't quite work out for me skipping breakfast on that reason. Turbo Stream says, it's all about insulin resistance, another complicated subject. Yeah. Well, I don't mind admitting I am at risk at the moment. I'm not been to the doctors or anything. I'm aware I need to lose weight to try not to do it. My breakfasts are almost 0 carbs, diabetes in remission now. Yeah. And Nicola says, Richard, add powdered porridge oats into smoothies. Helps with sugar levels and keeps you fuller. Funny enough, this is what Amanda and I have been discussing, is that, as we said with our breakfasts, skipping breakfast doesn't work for me, but I do like smoothies. So I'm starting to every morning go to work with a smoothie, using my battery-powered blender. If you see my van life videos, you know what I'm talking about. And, idea on that is I can blend that, take it to work, drink it on the go, give me the energy. And, porridge oats, I might add some powdered porridge oats if we've got any. That's a good idea indeed. I'll see what we can do. Perhaps smoothie recipes would go in with the weight loss one. Smoothie recipes might be a better idea. I'm going to jot that down. As I said, it's always difficult to try and keep nights when these things go along. Adrian is off. He's saying good night, Richard and all. He's off. He's going. It is coming to the end of the show, so we'll probably start wrapping up in a second anyway, as I get a phone call from my brother. Anyway, you know what? I think we are just about done anyway. I think we've come to the end of this discussion. So next week, winter veg. What are you going for winter? We're going to do a butternut squash grow along, and we'll go from there. So get your thinking caps on and see what happens. Right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up and get out of here. Thank you so much for the chat tonight. It's been great, and it's been an interesting chat as always. We will be back again next week, same time, same place. On the podcast tomorrow, we've got about mulches. We've got the allotment tour video coming out later this week, as well as the pea grow along. So please do keep an eye out for that. Right, guys, you take care. And I haven't set myself up to get out of here. But yeah, you take care. Have a great week. Make sure you remember to slap on that sunscreen, put a hat on, and stay hydrated as well in this warm weather. Take care, guys. See you next time.